morning. Sorry for the late start. I just got clued into the directions that some may have received in terms of going to southwest when this actually now southeast. So we apologize for that. But again, in some ways, it reminds me of a world we live in where it's sort of like you're on autopilot. I just looked at my phone and it says you have to be somewhere in like 10 minutes, so I just got out and go and just left. But sometimes you have to take a second to pay attention to our surroundings, and it's a harsh reminder that things did not always go smoothly when it comes to technology and planning. So lesson is learned, and I thank you for your patience. I'm sure others will stream in as we go through. But today I'm here to share a little bit about my vision for the city with respect to the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs and what we mean by digital transformation and its impact on our residents, our businesses, stakeholders, and all the communities that we try to bring together to improve their quality of life. I'll be joined by Harmen, a good friend, and also a co-founder of Sharing Cities Alliance. I'll have Harmen say a few words of our introduction as well, so please.
Thank you, and good morning to you too. I don't know, like camera-wise, where you want me to have, like to be, but okay. My name is Harmen indeed, and I'm the co-founder of the Sharing Cities Alliance, which is an independent foundation working entirely with city governments from all over the world, mainly to foster collaboration on the topic of sharing economy and digital platforms. So that's also the reason that I'm here. I'm really happy that from the very beginning, 2 years ago, Washington, DC joined, amongst other cities in Asia, Europe, and the United States. And I'm just here to try to get you in the topic of the sharing economy and digital platforms and inspire here and there, hopefully, and mainly, of course, that at least for my part, the more interactive, the better. So please learn from it, but mainly like also interact, come up with your questions and anything, and we'll see. I mean, I always have like this gazillion number of slides, but they're also just to back me up. So mainly it's about you, I think, and just how I can be of help to you. Great to be here, thank you.
All right, thank you. It feels very cozy to have all of you close to us. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to go around the table, tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit who you are and what you're hoping to accomplish through this seminar.
I'm Kristen Barden. I'm the Executive Director of the Adams Morgan Partnership. We're a business improvement district, and we have about 220 small businesses in our neighborhood. So I'm hoping to learn more about the changes coming to DCRA so that I can help better inform them how to interact with DCRA.
Hi, I'm Matthew Holden from the DC Office of Zoning. I'm the Zoning Data Coordinator, and I'm just here to learn what a sister agency is doing.
Jeremiah Montague Jr. I am the Advisory Neighborhood Commissioner for 5C07 in Woodbridge. So I'm here to see that our people get their due.
Hi, I'm Beth Harrison. I'm a supervising attorney in the Housing Law Unit at Legal Aid, and we represent low-income tenants and primarily interact with DCRA around residential housing inspections.
Good morning and happy Tuesday. My name is Julia, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services, and I'm here just to figure out how you all are doing this so I can take it back to our shop to improve our communication with our neighbors.
Hello everyone, my name is Patrick Allen. I work at DCRA Public and Regulatory Affairs in the Property Maintenance Division as well as Property Division. And I am here to, because DCRA is a very big agency, to really learn the overall scope of actually what the agency is doing and how that impacts the property maintenance as well as other divisions as we interact with one another on a day-to-day basis.
I'm Mary Fitch, Executive Director of the American Institute of Architects here in Washington, and I'm here to learn.
Hi, I'm Randy Marshall. I'm with the Apartment and Office Building Association. Our members do a lot of interaction with the agency through licensing, permitting, inspection. So we're just really interested to see the new roadmap that Director Chrappah is going to be releasing.
Hi, my name is Kim Mitchell, and I am here on two parts. I am the founder of DEA, District Expeditors Association. So I'm here also to be able to communicate information back to all the expeditors, as well as for myself. I have my own company to make sure that I'm on top of everything that DCRA is doing, so that I know about the new changes that are coming about.
Hi, I'm Caroline Crawford. I'm here with P.N. Hoffman. I'm part of the Wharf Phase 2 development team. We work very, very closely with DCRA on some complicated permits, and I appreciate all their help and support. So here to learn from you and see what's coming down the pike.
Hi, I'm Novi Daniels, DCRA Communications Manager, and I'm just here to help share what we're doing at DCRA for our residents.
Hello, I'm Vincent Parker, the Administrator for Business and Professional Licensing at DCRA.
Thank you. I don't feel so blind. I always want to get a sense of who's in the room. Obviously, I've seen many of you, so the name is not something that I've forgotten. But for today's conversation, if you don't mind, I'll take a sit down with Harmen so that we can talk through what we are doing at DCRA, and he can also share his global perspective on what cities overall are doing with respect to the shared economy and digital transformation. When it comes to DCRA, for many of you, you're quite aware that we touch on so many residents and businesses in very interesting ways, from cutting people's grass to issuing permits for small residential projects to complicated projects or large projects like hospitals or even the wharf, to even picking up trash sometimes. And our reach is expansive. However, our mission remains the same, and that is to improve the quality of life of residents, protect economic interest, and also safeguard health and safety. And we accomplish this through not only the regulatory framework, but also looking at policies that need to adapt to time. One of the things that we've uncovered over the last few months that I've been with the agency is that the needs of our customers has evolved. It's evolved in a way that nothing short of fundamental changes to the way we approach our relationships will get us close to meeting or exceeding their expectations. So to address the changing landscape of customer expectations, we are embarking on what we call a digital transformation. If you Google digital transformation, a number of different things will come up. But for us, it really means that we are changing the way we create value for our customers through process changes, technology investments, and also how we deliver services in a way that meets our customers where they really are. And it is driven largely by a bigger factor that is driving across the globe, and that is the sharing economy. We are in an environment where you can push a button on your phone and get a car to come pick you up. And before the driver comes, you will get a sense of how long it's going to take, where exactly he is through GPS tracking. And if you are bored and you need to order food, you don't even need to leave the comfort of your home or your office while you're waiting for the car. You can order food to be delivered as well. So that kind of convenience or frictionless transactions is what consumers are used to today. So when a resident calls the city for a service, they expect the same thing. They expect predictability in terms of how long it's going to take to deliver the service. They expect to be notified what the service level is, and they also expect the service to be delivered in a clear, consistent, and repeatable manner. So that's the environment we're living in. And it creates a lot of pressure for city services. But what it also creates that is not often talked about is an incredible opportunity to make the lives of residents simply better, where we reduce the level of anxiety, we give them the assurance that the city is booming and prospering, and there will be new opportunities for them in ways that they didn't imagine. DCRA, from pure number standpoint, you can tell the impact. We issue about 10,000 professional licenses. We have about 17,000 corporations registered, 31,000 plus business licenses. And when it comes to inspections, we complete over 50,000 inspections annually, while we issue 56,000 building permits. If you go to a city like Arlington, that is right across the border, I believe they issue less than 20,000 permits a year. So this gives you a sense of the scale in an environment where consumers just expect instant gratification. And we measure part of our success not only in meeting the needs of our customers, but also economic contribution. Over the last year, DCRA has contributed over $12 billion in economic contribution. That is no small feat, given the reach and scale of the agency. But recognizing that we have to make some structural and fundamental changes, the big question now becomes, what are the initiatives that we are working on that will deliver this new value that we talk about? They touch on a number of our categories, from our budget all the way down to our tech. Let me start a little bit about the budget. We've assessed the agency's budget situation and implemented some fiscal discipline so that we can make good use of the dollars that our taxpayers pay to help fund the agency. Regulatory reform is another big category of our initiative that is underway in terms of helping us identify layers of regulations or laws that are on the books that may not necessarily be helpful in this new sharing economy. And we are not taking that on simply from an internal standpoint. We've asked the industry and our customers and our residents to share their ideas about areas that require some type of regulatory reform. And we've aggregated or put some structure around that process by establishing a work group to identify outdated regulations and make some recommendations. The work groups had a few meetings, and we are hopeful that in 2 or 3 more meetings we'll have a baseline for some ideas that we can analyze and decide which one to move forward with. Similarly, we've also addressed communications. So while we are having this session to hear about the city's vision, my vision, this is also an opportunity for you to relay back things that you would like to see as the agency moves in this new path. We've had over 21 plus listening sessions, hearing from different residents, business groups, and stakeholders about what needs to improve or what can be improved at DCRA. But the part that I personally get excited about is the people component. Most of the time when we hear about change, it may be limited to systems and technology, but for us, we have a workforce of over 450. That is a competitive advantage in terms of delivering service. So when it comes to the people component of our digital transformation, we are looking for ways to build up the staff so that they can deliver more pleasant experiences for our customers, give them the tools where they will have relevancy in the digital economy in an environment where there's continued automation and artificial intelligence, all around the idea that if you have well-performing staff, you are more likely to be in a position where you can deliver excellent customer experiences. So it is a big focus of the organization. And some of the initiatives we have underway in the people category is a matrix reporting structure. Bureaucracies typically have the HR hierarchy, but that in some ways can stifle innovation or stifle opportunities for people to try their leadership skills and fail in a safe environment. So what we've done is establish this matrix reporting structure where anybody can propose a project. Once the project is resourced and the goals are clearly articulated and how successfully measured, they are given an opportunity to execute against that so that they can learn new skills, but also figure out how to collaborate in a team environment. So that's one of the things we have underway at DCRA. Massive process changes. There are over 38 standard operating procedures that are being updated, from everything touching on how you do an inspection, how you issue a permit, how you develop performance plans. And the idea behind all of this is not only to document how we do things, but create repeatable processes so that we can be very efficient in the delivery of services. Then we are also looking at a rating system for the professionals who are involved in every project. And it's something that most consumers are aware of today. If you go to a restaurant and the experience was good, you rate favorably; not so good, you rate it as well. So rating systems are part of the sharing economy, the digital economy, and we are incorporating that into not only the services we provide. When you engage with DCRA, at the end of the transaction, you receive an email asking you to rate your experience. So we are rating ourselves, and we make this information publicly available. But then we go one step further and saying, for every building permit or project that comes to our door, we're going to rate the professionals involved, the architect, the plumber, all the design professionals, and then leverage that rating system to identify risky projects or risky contractors and be able to take decisions down the line, and also help inform consumers. If today I want to build an addition to a house, my sources of information for contractors will be all over the internet. But as the regulatory agency in DC, it will be helpful for consumers to come and say, let me figure out how the contractor performed in a way that is transparent. So that is sort of like the idea behind the rating system that we are putting in place. And then, of course, tech investments that we are making. The three tech investments that I'm going to talk about. The first is a dashboard that we've launched to provide visibility into the agency performance, as far as how long is it taking to issue permits, how long is it taking to review the permit, how many inspections are we doing, and it's not just about showing data. It also sets the tone of a conversation. When somebody says my permit is delayed, I ask, do we communicate our service level? Do we inform you upfront that what we've committed to is completing the first round of permit reviews in 30 days? And interestingly, we do that over 90% of the time. When it comes to inspections, let's say there's a vacant building inspection survey that needs to be done. When somebody says, no, I called in and I made an inquiry, but the inspection has not occurred, the first thing I ask my staff is, are we within or outside of the service level? And it is part of the culture that we are establishing, where we want the public to measure us by objective standards, and for staff to also pay attention to what the data is telling us when it comes to our service delivery. And that is something that we launched, I believe, last month, and it provides unrivaled visibility into the performance of the agency across all the functions. And then we've also launched a customer relationship management model as part of transforming DCRA. And the thinking here is that instead of looking at our customers as buildings, we'll look at everybody that interacts with us as a customer that has a lifetime value, and we have a duty to manage that relationship to positive experiences using deliberate and intentional strategies to address every concern. So through the system, all inquiries, whether through the web channel, phone, social, is aggregated in one central hub, so that the internal agent that is responding to the inquiry has complete visibility into the scope of the issue, the nature of the issue, and can drive to real outcomes where there is a service level guarantee. Our service level guarantee is that we will address or resolve any inquiry within 3 business days. That is a standard that we've set so that consumers or customers have a level of assurance that if I contact the city agency for something, they are not only going to acknowledge it, but they will work through a systematic process to ensure that by the 3rd business day, the issue is resolved. And I'm glad to report that since the launch of the pilot, we've handled over 2,100 cases through that system, and it's beginning to set a foundation for what we see happening down the line, where everybody has a unique ID into their interactions with us, and they can follow the transactions as it goes through the system. The last 2 pieces that I want to touch on when it comes to some of the tech investments we are making is going paperless with our inspections. If somebody calls for an inspection as part of this digital transformation, they are not only going to get a case number where they can track it and receive notifications while the inspector is coming to them, but when the inspection is complete, they will get a copy of it as well. Today, that doesn't exist. But that is a window into what is possible when it comes to digital transformation. Similarly, we are looking into ways where we can handle the surges in demand for permit reviews. Having a finite amount of resources, fixed number of employees in an environment where the building industry has been booming for years in DC requires some flexible supply model. Supply meaning like permit reviewers. So we are looking at an on-demand platform where pretty much anybody can request an expedited permit review and be able to get matched with the appropriate resources in near real time, so that we can handle whatever request comes down the pike without necessarily straining all our resources. And these are some of the things that are not possible today, but you can only achieve that through digital transformation. If you look at the example of Airbnb or even the transportation network companies or ride-sharing companies, the idea is very simple but very complicated to execute, in that you are not always going to be able to predict demand. So you have to have a flexible supply model where if there are surges, you can respond to it, all because you are looking at delighting your customers. And that is something that I want to mention is only possible through digital transformation. With that as a synopsis, I'm going to pass the baton or microphone back to Harmen so that he can talk a little bit about what he's seeing from a global perspective, and then we can invite some questions and talk in more detail as to what is happening at DCRA.
Thank you. If I can have the clicker. Yes. Yeah. And if John can put the slides up. Well, let's, with my slides, travel first all the way to Amsterdam, where I come from. And it's probably going to be, especially the first part, a totally different story than maybe what you're working on, but there are similarities, don't worry about it. And later on in the slides, I will go to some perspectives that are, I think, mostly in line with the upcoming sharing and on-demand economy and digital platformization. Again, if you want to at any time pose a question or just think, hey, I need to make a remark here, please be very welcome, of course. Let me see. My $2, and I always try to start with this wherever I am in the world, but it's a bit exceptional today because one of them is sitting all the way in the back here. So I brought her with me. This is Manu, and Manu is well, brought up with the sharing economy, I think, from the very beginning. She's now 9 years old. But this picture is just in front of our home. And Ruli and Anu, the other daughter is Ruli, they are playing together with something that they found in a little cupboard, so to say, outside in the street, which we put there a few years ago. You know those little book libraries on the street here and there. We initiated one in our neighborhood, and it's more than only books. So it's like people put toys there, or like shoes even, or sometimes food, or you can find all sorts of little gems in that little, so to say, library. And the interesting thing is that they also get the system by now, because of course for kids it's quite hard to share sometimes, even if they are my daughters. But they see the system, so in a sense that like if they have something that they don't play with anymore, they put it in this little home and somebody else in the neighborhood or whoever passes by can enjoy that one. And the metaphor here being, in Dutch we say samen spelen, samen delen. That doesn't say anything to you probably, but like here in English of course it does. Like if you want to live together or if you want to work together, you have to learn to share, of course. I know it's not only difficult for children but also for grown-ups, but let's try. This is a mural painting in the heart of Amsterdam. It's near a school and it's a saying by one of the pupils at the school. And it says, here again is a translation, ik speel in de stad met alles wat er bestaat. I'm not going to talk Dutch all the time, don't worry. But I play in the city with everything that is in fact already there. And I think that is a great metaphor for the sharing economy. We have everything in place. And I'll show you through the coming slides all examples from the Netherlands or Amsterdam, all platforms that are quite different from the bigger Airbnbs and Ubers that we all know from using it ourselves or maybe from the press, and giving just an insight in like the diversity of the sharing economy and what could be possible in a city. I'll go to them quite quickly. Of course you can afterwards have the slides if you're inspired, and I would maybe later on for the dialogue or discussion, if there are any ideas coming from this that you'd like to put on the table here, please do so, then I can, together of course with you, more go in depth into it. But Peerby, about sharing household appliances, stuff, etc. The most famous example always is the drill. The drill is used like 12 or 13 minutes in its time. Everybody has a drill. Why? Doesn't make sense. I mean, a neighbor has a drill which you can of course borrow. This kind of platform does that. Share Your Meal, which is all about people who love to sometimes cook a few more meals than only for themselves and just put it on the platform, and then somebody else in the neighborhood can just pick it up at the end of the day. So you, for example, go in the morning to this platform, and it's just totally different from the Uber Eats and the Deliveroo kind of things. This is really like people just locally cooking some meals in their own home and putting it on a website. There's almost no margin on it. It's more for the fun and, of course, for the social connection at the end of the day when people pick up the meal. Barco, it's all Dutch platforms, but some are also internationally operating. This is about sharing boats. So we all know the example of course, like all the idle standing cars from other people, but the same goes for boats. So this is the canals in Amsterdam. Of course, most people are during the day they're working. Maybe you have a free day. You can, borrow, rent the boat of somebody else for like for $30, $40 maybe a day. Pick this up where you say, okay, I bought something on eBay or something and I want it to be delivered to my home. You could go to like, of course, the known parcel services, but maybe there's somebody else just going that same route and can take that, in this case, a bike with them. Lena, it's a fashion library until this very moment only for the girls and not for the boys yet in the Netherlands, but if you sometimes, for example, need like a special suit, I mean, this guy here is always in a special suit, but not we're all. So if you need like this special suit or like something like a dress, you can borrow it here at this fashion library, as they call it. Van de Bron, it's about energy sharing. So Van de Bron means like from the source. You can take your energy not directly from this unknown company, but maybe from somebody like who is having a big field of like solar panels, or maybe even just like a neighbor with some surplus of energy on his or her roof. You can take it from there. So it makes it a bit different than just like this anonymous big energy company. The helpen, sometimes again still a bit Dutch, but this says it all. We help to help each other out in the neighborhood. So in this case, this I think photo says it all. The girl needs a little bit of help temporarily. That help is most of the time available in your very neighborhood, maybe also if you don't know that person. And the fun fact, I think, from this platform, that there is more supply of help than there is demand. And you could say, okay, that's marketing. But in the end, this is the case. I mean, I know the founders of these kind of platforms in the Netherlands well. And this is just what happens, that people apparently want to help each other out. Apparently, maybe we also have to dare to ask sometimes. It's there. Quite newish, but in the Netherlands, of course, everybody has like at least 2 bikes. I don't know why, but still there is this new platform, Swap Bike, Swap Feet. And apparently a lot of students especially use this. It's like this on-demand model where they just sort of rent the bike, of course, per month, and including like services, etc. So it's amazingly to see like in this totally dominated market by everybody owning their own bike that already I see so many blue wheels of these kind of bikes happening. So new generations just tap into this. They step out of the model of just owning the bike, which is not that expensive, to just this service model. And the same goes for these kind of things. It's also a Dutch platform, like with the electric scooters, it's booming. Motor share makes sense for motorbikes, Cam2 for RVs. And this, for example, is the car that I use. It's car sharing, but then peer-to-peer, so not like on demand like a car from a big car manufacturer, but in this case a private leased car. And what this company did is saying, okay, normally I think, at least in the Netherlands, most leasing companies say, oh, not even your wife is going to drive that leased car, but or partner. But in this case, they say, okay, they see this world changing, so they said, okay, you can private lease this car and you can rent it out to anyone, whenever you want. It's okay, it's insured, it's all covered. An interesting thing is that you can make this calculation when you start like leasing a car here and see like what you're going to save if you're going to share this car. So, you know, mostly, of course, again, I'm in Amsterdam, so I hop on a bike when I go to my office. It's 15 minutes bike ride. I never use this car almost, like maybe sometimes in the weekend. Somebody else in my neighborhood could use this car, pay me a little money for it. Makes sense because I also have the cost of the car. And it's going to move around, and you know it's a shared car, and not somebody else is not maybe also buying a car. So I think in general, of course, good for cities, good for the environment, and good for social contacts. So what we see in general, and sorry for going quite rapidly through the slides, but we don't have that much time, is that we see a lot of different platforms in a lot of different markets evolving. And I know this is really differing per city and differing per region or country. But in general, this is going on. This is what is possible. This is what probably will evolve, especially with new generations just picking this up, and for them, this is making total sense. And what we see in this model, and you can also look it up on the website, is that of course traditional companies are also seeing this, and seeing this also as an opportunity. They see it as a threat, but also as an opportunity. So like the leasing company or insurance companies or like even in logistics in the Netherlands now, they're all tapping already as traditional companies in this field of the sharing or platform economy. And of course what makes it unique, this goes without saying probably, is that we as an individual all can have roles that we maybe didn't have before. You can choose one, you can choose a few, you can choose like one for the other day and one for the other day, but this is all like the examples that I gave you that are possible and are happening and are only possible because of this digitization and the fact that we have platforms for everything to bring supply and demand together really efficiently. And so, going a bit more to the governmental level is a few years ago with, I have two organizations. I have the Sharing Cities Alliance Foundation together with my co-founder Peter, but we also have a small social enterprise, an agency where we advise also companies, etc. And some years ago we dived into the sharing economy in Amsterdam, because there was so much already going on, and we did a research there and saw that 84% of Amsterdam citizens are willing to share, which is a few years ago already, so the number is now even higher. So we thought, okay, here is a lot of opportunity. And so we were at that time inspired by Seoul in South Korea. They called themselves already a sharing city years ago from the mayor level, because he said, okay, I have some issues in my city, like every city does. And like as a mayor, he said, maybe the sharing economy can help me and my citizens, a city, to address some of those challenges. And so we thought, okay, we also want to do this in Amsterdam. So we initiated Amsterdam Sharing City. We got a whole bunch of people together, which is people from the city government. So in the very middle, it's a former deputy mayor. She's now a minister at the Ministry of Interior Affairs. We have companies, we have academics, we have platforms, we have like a big diversity of, so to say, stakeholders all coming together. This is early 2015 and saying, okay, together we want to address all the opportunities and challenges of the sharing economy locally in Amsterdam. And that just like spun off to, I mean, sitting here together now. Yeah. So what, for example, the city government in Amsterdam did, because they were really on board of this venture, they said, okay, we of course going to come up with our own vision. Why do we want to be a sharing city and what does it bring to us? So they made like this plan, the Sharing Economy Action Plan, and again I can share the slides, and there you have also the link to this whole action plan in English. All the, I think, quite logical
reasons as a city to jump into the sharing and platform economy. And I must say, this is until now probably quite an upbeat story, but of course, for most larger city goals, that the sharing economy is also quite exciting and has a lot of challenges or hurdles, so to say. Especially, of course, when you look at those bigger platforms. But as I said, like our former deputy mayor saw it as an opportunity to work more with the sharing economy a few years ago already. Yes, but please be welcome, sit down, join us.
Yeah, Hi, Mr. I heard that the DC mayor is here.
Well, I don't know about it. I didn't see her, but...
Because my former boss always claimed himself as a friend of DC mayor, so I'm here to verify.
Okay, well, maybe later, I don't know. This was at least like one of the deputy mayors in Amsterdam. Is that good enough for you too?
No, for me.
Okay,
as
well.
the DC mayor, what's her name? Paulson?
Yeah, that's right. At least you can get on the picture in the hallway. And this is, I think, what really brings it down. Is the fact that the city of Amsterdam sees the sharing economy as not a question of banning or authorizing, but really just to grasp the opportunities that are there. So I think that's a quite open and liberal, maybe, of course, we're in Amsterdam, perception of the sharing economy. And then I think also coming a bit more maybe in your area is that the fact that there are platforms and there are pilots needed, So I think the city of Amsterdam, but also around the world, there are different pilot projects that we are now doing in the city to just experience it and see, okay, what are the uptakes and the downfalls of the sharing economy. Maybe I'm going to skip a bit further. This is something, for example, where they said, okay, this is also in maybe your previous department, a bit of an example. If you would like hand in your parking permit, in other words, like say you get rid of your car, you get like a $300 car sharing voucher to start peer-to-peer car sharing. I was one of the fools years ago to do that. Nobody gets out of his car for one time €300 car sharing voucher, but I did. It's an example way back, but it's interesting. Expanding a bit more, now this is a pilot going on in Amsterdam where they said, okay, you hand in your parking permit then, okay, not like indefinitely, but for 2 months. And you get like a pass to have all these sorts of transportation means instead of your car. So traditional taxi companies, new taxi companies, public transportation, electric scooters, everything in the mix. Try it for 2 months. You'll get your car and your car permit back. But try it and maybe you just want to leave your car after that 2 months. You just never know. I'll skip through a few slides. To expand, what our deputy mayor at that time did is say, okay, if we are calling ourselves a sharing city, then we should also share experiences worldwide. So she invited people, deputy mayors mainly, from all over the world to Amsterdam a few years ago. This is the back of the mayor's mayor's home. And like people from New York and Paris and not Washington DC yet, I think. Seoul and Barcelona, etc., all coming together for the very first time in this like closed-door session to talk about all those main challenges, I think, in this case, of the sharing economy. A year further, so that's, I think, now 2 years ago, and that's where we met, of course, is New York City. The second Sharing City Summit, people from all over the world again coming together to share experiences, and I think this is really needed in this globalization and in all the issues that we all have as cities that we learn from each other, of course. Deputy Mayor of New York, I think she just stepped down. And these are some of the cities now part of the Sharing Cities Alliance, but I'll go also quickly through that. I don't know if you know this guy, great guy. What do we do, for example? We cannot convene as city governments all the time, of course, together, that's impossible being everywhere in the world, so we do a lot of webinars, and those are all accessible for all the partner cities. So if you're working for the city of Washington, you can join them, and on all sorts of topics. So like last week even, with the CIO of your former department, this is an online seminar, and then all those cities that are part of the alliance are also in the same session so that you can actively and directly learn from each other. So again, if you're working for the city government, be welcome. We have a monthly online magazine that's also for you if you're for the city government. With all the cases, we have like an online database with a lot of knowledge around this topic, so you can type in any subject and you can find a lot of information there. Ernest does it all the time. And what we of course see, this is one of the persons that is in the strategy committee of the Alliance, is of course that we see that this is a broader restructuring of businesses and society by these digital platforms. This is an interesting guy. If you don't know, look him up. I mean, he also wrote a book about the sharing economy. We did too, but in Dutch, no use to you. He did it in English and Chinese, wise guy. He is a lot working and talking on the sharing economy also internationally. And I don't want to back it up all the time, but there's all these institutions seeing that this is the new way forward and it's becoming a routine part of life. Well, that may be as a whole. Let's go into some perspectives, and maybe those could already be like a bit of a fire starters for discussion. I'm not sure, like also kick me out of this chair if I'm talking too long or too loud or whatever, or too liberal. And I don't know about the time, but let me know. Some perspectives. Is it about regulation, or is it more about innovation? Or could it be maybe both? I mean, this is the dilemma. Like if you have like the more recent deputy mayor in Amsterdam, when we were having the Sharing Cities Summit a few months ago in Barcelona, he was saying this on stage, it's the combination of the two. And so, for example, if we look at the city of Barcelona, and not all Uber cars are like this in Barcelona, of course, but it's the second time that Barcelona, for example, as a city banned Uber. Well, that's a way, of course, of dealing with the platform. But then you have DC, and it sees it partly, and you know, maybe I'm naive, I'm not working here all the time, so maybe you think, yeah, we also want to ban Uber, I don't know, but I mean, they also see, and this is what I see, you know, opportunities for collaboration. So I think it's a lot of times this dilemma, this like two sides to the story. And so this is maybe also interesting, it's a bit of an older research to look up, it's like from the Aspen Institute. But of course, maybe we tend to think of governments as doing things, but we should also think of government as a platform that let things happen. That's not easy, I know, but sometimes it's needed, I think.
Absolutely. And I think this is a good segue into how we see DCRA adapting to support the complex needs of our residents and business community. Maybe we should invite some questions, and then we can talk through how we are applying lessons from the sharing economy, the sharing platform into our service delivery.
Anyone who dares. Anything is good.
I can keep it back there so they can ask me.
I have a question. I applaud you for your efforts in going to the digital future, but one question that I do have that I see as a continuous issue is that with this transition that I find all of the changes, like just say for your literature, your communication among the staff, and keeping everything more relative to any changes that you made, what I'm finding is like your forms, when you go to digital, and how are you going to master the fact that you have the most recent forms? How are you going to master the fact that your staff has the same communicative model, meaning that any changes that took place with the regulation that they're aware of, and that there's no delay in response and communication, that it's consistent? Because it shouldn't matter if it's all within one model of mechanical and that change took place, no matter how you read it, whatever that change was, that's what should be consistent with their process and delivery.
That's a very good question. It gets to the heart of new ways of communicating. Historically, communications have been sort of like in silos, where you get information by mail, or you get separate information by email, separate information by in-person conversations. And what we are saying is, looking at the lessons from the sharing economy, we have to have omni-channel communications, so that whoever taps into just sort of social media or the snail mail or email gets the same information that goes to everybody else in the channel. And it also brings up the importance of having a unique customer profile, so that if there's a change in regulation, once it becomes final, it goes out to everybody at the same time, internal and external. And as we receive feedback, we incorporate that feedback and push it back out the same way across the multiple channels. And that streamlined form of communication is the only way that we've seen so far that can reduce the inconsistency of interpretations or the inconsistency in information received. And it's a driving reason why we put in place a customer relationship management model where we enroll our customers into the system, we verify their email, their mobile, and their communication preferences, so that when an event happens of interest, the information goes out right away and cuts out the middleman.
Would you give some examples of other cities you think are like the most friendly and the least friendly to sharing economies? And do you have any other examples of the example in Amsterdam with the parking permit, taking away the parking permit for 2 months, like things that cities are doing to either partner or not partner?
Yes, thank you for your question. Let me go to, I'm going to use some slides for it and then just tell me if it's too much. So we were here, because I think most examples that I have now are from different cities around the world. So of course we're going from offline to online, and therefore like maybe from paper to platforms. So for example, City of Amsterdam saying this was like happening when I took my daughter to the US, and then we needed a passport for her, and then okay, you have to go to the place to get the passport, but afterwards they say, okay, we can deliver it to your home. Well, that's interesting. That means that I'm not standing in line for 2 times. That's lovely. This is happening in the UK, where they have UK.gov, where they're trying to, as much as they can, make a platform of all the services of the national government. So it's something what they call like platform as a service or government as a service. I think that's also really interesting to look into. What we also see, of course, we're going from business to consumer more to peer-to-peer. So really from dependency on maybe big agencies and big companies to more dependency or interdependency on each other. So for example, this is an overview from Seoul from a few years ago, where they say as a city that they make this overview of all the sharing services that are already happening in their city in different fields. The same goes in Gothenburg in Sweden. They just made this a few months ago and also won a prize with it. Also as a city government trying to make an effort of bringing all those services together on one platform. And the same goes for the city of Norwich in the UK. With they just joined the alliance some months ago. Again, a government initiative to bring together all those different sharing services. From commercial going to, of course, more to cooperative. So for example, this is the city of The Hague, and this is in your field, we just talked about it. This is a new area which they just developed, and also saying, partly as a city government, okay, we're not going to give you like all the street for parking spaces anymore, so be more inventful. The same goes for the way they want to build their buildings. So there's not like on the ground floor that they're just putting a lot of shops there anymore, because everybody's online now, especially also in those new areas. So they make co-working spaces, etc., and spaces for like car sharing, and how can we, of course, include services in there. So this is a concept that we developed for the city government, in this case for The Hague. So how could they totally tap into the sharing platform economy? And this is, for example, in Malmö, also in Sweden. This is an area that they're developing or redeveloping right now, and they're also trying to involve the sharing economy as much as possible. So they leave cars out of this whole area. You park your car on the very barriers of the area, and they are into peer-to-peer energy sharing and in food and all sorts of services of the sharing economy while redeveloping this city. I'm going to bombard you with examples now, so maybe you also, if you want to add something to it, please do it. Yeah, good, great.
I can see some of the opportunities and bring it back to the Vision 2020 roadmap. And I'm going to put it in the context of our housing. So housing inspections, as an example. In Washington, that has been done pretty much as a city service. But as the demand for housing grows, you can also anticipate an increase in demand for housing inspections. So the way we see tapping into a best practice from the sharing economy is to have this platform where residents can request an inspection from the platform. Businesses or individuals can also apply to the platform to provide inspections. Of course, they have to be certified and meet certain requirements. That way, the government creates a marketplace where if you want an inspection tomorrow, sure, that's what you're going to get. If you want an inspection after 5 p.m. because that is when you get off work, the marketplace can support that. And that becomes an adaptive model where we are not only catering to a resident's need, but we're also creating economic opportunities for individuals and businesses to deliver that service. That way, the government is not encumbered by the limited budgets that we typically have. And that's just one example of how city services can be delivered on platforms to ensure that demand is being matched to supply and being responsive to customer needs.
Thank you so much. I had a question, just kind of piggybacking off of what you were just talking about when you're talking about inspections in particular. Do you see any other natural partnerships with existing platforms that you envision would support DCRA's digital transformation? Also, if there aren't existing platforms, it sounds like you would be interested in creating an in-house platform. And if you could speak a little bit about that.
Yes, the idea is for government to lead with respect to the innovation and unlock opportunities for private sector partners to collaborate and take it a step further. It is also a way we signal to the market in terms of our policy priorities in areas where we are looking to improve the lives of residents. So to the extent that there are platforms out there that can be adapted to support our needs, we're very much interested in hearing and having those conversations about how we can partner. We don't believe the solution can come from one source. We don't believe government should solve all problems. We believe in making business part of the solution, and we're making sure solutions are centered around our residents so that they have transparency, visibility, and they can improve their quality of life.
I have two questions. One is about DCRA, and the other is about DDOT and WMATA. I'll do the DCRA question first. So you mentioned that in addition to customers being able to rate DCRA, DCRA was then going to begin to rate architects and contractors, et cetera, so that you could better, better inform yourselves, I guess, about who's doing quality work and who's not. And I see that as sort of two-sided. Like, I mean, it could be good to eliminate the really incompetent, people who are doing dangerous things. However, if it creates sort of preferential treatment to some contractors or some architects over others, that could also be problematic. Can you speak to some safeguards that you're putting into that system?
Yeah, definitely. And before I touch on that, I want to bring back a story that I shared with my staff that relates to our change. And it's about the story of the 6 blind men and the elephant. That's somewhere originated somewhere in I think India, and then it was translated into English. One guy touched the tail and said it was a rope. Another guy touched the stone side and said it was a wall. Not the kind that somebody wants to build to separate us from Mexico, but a wall. And then another guy touched the task and said it was a spear. They all went round, and nobody could tell it was an elephant. But they all make their determination based on their perspective. And that is something that is similar to what we try to do here at DCRA, in that we are embarking on a digital transformation that will unlock a series of opportunities. It is very difficult to see what it will be until there's something in front of you that you can react to and the lights will come on. Similarly, with the rating systems, what we are talking about here is having objective standards that is informed not only by residents, but also business community and also internal review. So for example, if an architect or a contractor or somebody within the value chain of a building project submits plans, but they make verification to a different energy standard when the city's requirement is actually, for example. That is a basic thing that they got to get right. If their plans are incomplete, there's a way to objectively measure that. Even if they submit a complete plan, they get a permit, and the contractor builds a house, and that's shoddy work, where the walls start falling apart over time, or you discover that they use substandard material. These are examples where objective standards will tease out good versus bad work. And it's not really, the idea of the rating system is not about the government picking winners and losers. Far from that. It's about being transparent about the actors in the value chain and promoting operational excellence. Similarly, if an internal reviewer tells you you are missing 5 pages in your building plan, but if you do a recount, the 5 pages are actually there, and as a result of that, they've held your project up for 5 days. That's unacceptable, right? You can make that review system. So the review or rating systems provides an objective way to measure satisfaction and also the delivery of services. And we are working on it. There's nothing that is out. It's a concept that we have some methodologies around it. And as we flesh it out, we are definitely going to bring the community to the table and say, this is what we've come up with. It's going to go through legal review. It's going to go through all the steps that things got to go through. And people will get a chance to give us feedback. Tweak it this way, tweak it that way, similar to any initiative that the government takes, because it's about making things better beyond what we currently have.
Good. And so my second question is, and I know neither one of you work for DDOT or for WMATA, but have these conversations about sharing transit, have they started to happen with WMATA and with DDOT? Do you know? Because I haven't heard, as a member of the public, I haven't heard about any of those kinds of ideas coming out of those agencies.
I can only share at least what I've seen. When it comes to DDOT as an example, Mauritian is very progressive. We worked a lot together when I was in the transportation sector, and we still work together on the infrastructure side. I know his team is looking at different ways where the lessons of the sharing economy can be applied to DC. We certainly have bike sharing, and one of the things the mayor proposed in her fiscal year 20 is to make circulator free forever. That's a game changer. So if you are a resident and you go to a job, now your transportation cost has just been cut. It's an equalizer. So if you think about all the city services and you look at infrastructure that is within the control of the city, for example, like circulator buses or bike sharing, or even creating dedicated parking areas for ride-sharing companies, there's a lot of movement. I know WMATA also is looking at their fare payment systems and how to link the way people transact with the fare payment system. So there are a lot of efforts underway, and I think it's a matter of when as opposed to if, and as things change, they'll communicate that to their existing channels.
I want to go back and speak upon your paperless inspections. And as you're aware, DCRA has normal business hours from 9 to 5. With the paperless process, that would mean, or that would assume that the process will continuously continue to go after everyone goes home. I want to know how that's going to, with you also adding the opportunities for other small businesses to come in and bridge the gap where there's a shortfall in terms of the economic proportion. I just want to know, you're adding value, you're giving opportunity, but in terms of the volume, I don't see where you are going to not fall short and not be able to deliver. Because if the staff goes home at 5 o'clock and that's your normal transition for that department, how are you going to handle that volume that comes on? Because the construction is still going on, like either from the consumer or either from the business. I'm just trying to figure out how are you going to handle that component right there.
And let me ask a follow-up so that I can understand. You mean how are we going to handle the increased volume from doing paperless inspections?
Correct. After hours, like you're gone, and you just, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said that you've given opportunity to other businesses to process a consumer's request for it if they want to make an inspection, or if a business wants to make an inspection. How are you going, when the business day starts back up the next day, you could have gotten like 400 or 500 requests. How are you going to be able to handle that if you only still have the same amount of staff internally and the external staff is only doing one component? I'm just trying to figure out how they're bridging each other.
Yeah, there are a number of different strategies to handle that. First, if you take a look at the value process, there is the requester, there is the inspector, there is the quality assurance piece, and there is something that is an overlay, and that is automation. So, for example, today there are technologies in place where you can do risk assessments without necessarily throwing more bodies at an inspection reports. So leveraging technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning, we can identify reports that are faulty or have issues. And that is what comes back to some of the things I talked about. Building our staff to be part of the future of work, where they can thrive in an environment where there's increased automation. So that now, instead of having an inspector, and I'm giving just an example, who spends half of their day reviewing 20 inspection reports, the technology can scan those reports and say, I've identified 5 that need a different set of eyes. So now our workforce will be managing the robots, so to speak. Our workforce will be in a position where they're doing higher quality work, more fulfilling work, that can extend their careers into different areas. That is sort of like the thinking and the innovation that the digital economy, the sharing economy unlocks, which is simply not possible today. Taking that a step further, this idea of working between 8:30 and 4:30 does not mean service delivery stops at 4:30, because we can now take advantage of different time zones. So if somebody wants to have telecommuting, we can say, well, as an agency, we're going to move to a 24/7 operation. Of course, we have to plan this out, which means between the hours of 4:30 and 12:30 midnight, you'll be doing quality assurance reviews, so that when the workforce comes back in the morning, something is being taken care of. That's the flexibility that we need to put in place so that we are constantly delivering. And that will naturally bring opportunities and risk. But we have to create an environment where we can pilot things, see what works, what doesn't work, course correct, so that we are always delivering value.
Maybe to spark 1 or 2 more questions, and I'm not sure how much time do we still have for the session? Sorry? But maybe some more to give you some more input, maybe, and otherwise, yeah, please always jump on it. I'll skip this one, but it's interesting, like the public-private era. Where are we? This is in Ghent, in the city in Belgium, and they are really, and this I think you see all over the world, is just maybe for summertime just turn like parking spaces or parts of streets into living streets. I think this is just to make and create awareness around the fact that you can do some other stuff, of course, with public space and just put cars there, for example. This is an interesting one. And what you see also in this city, in Belgium, but also in Barcelona, is that we're going maybe sometimes from power to empowerment, or otherwise from control to the crowd. So, for example, Ghent really make this big transition plan to make it really a commons city. So really give a lot of voice to the people, which is, I think, interesting. Their whole plan is also available in English if you want to look it up.
And what they also did, for example, is come up with a digital platform from the city government to also have, I wanted to say perfect, but it's never perfect, but at least if you follow the red arrow, a process where if refugees come in, that they, as soon as possible, with all the help from all the stakeholders involved, can be part of the city and part of life here, instead of just hanging around for maybe months or sometimes years, not being able to be participating in the city and in life and in work. Something else, what we see, and this is also maybe a bit into the building area, is that, of course, again, public-private, private companies come in public space. So I don't know if you heard about this place in Toronto, Sidewalk Labs, Sidewalk Toronto, which there's a lot of debate, of course, about that. Yes, I know. I mean, this is an area being developed as totally maybe like a platform, but it's an initiative by Alphabet, Google. So that's interesting. And what they do try, I don't know if that's only marketing, but like trying to involve the public as much as possible into developing this area. And of course, again, there are a lot of fears around being having Google around as the main initiator, but still. And this is, I think, a good remark that the mayor of Toronto made recently, that it is not about like just go fast and break things with this whole digital disruption, but really to see if it can be about collaboration and inclusion. So I think in the end, hopefully, I don't want to sound too naive, that if the big companies come in, especially in the public space, that they also somehow, and the same goes for the platforms like Uber, they are, I think, slowly more aware that they have to talk to the government instead of just barging into a city and think that they can own the public space. This is totally different. This is Space 10. Space 10 is a trend and research agency in Copenhagen, which is totally funded by IKEA. And IKEA, of course, is also really big, but they're looking into all new ways of living, which is, of course, beneficial to their company, but they're mostly open source, sharing all their findings, for example, when it comes to also shared living. So they also see that the way we live in houses and apartments will look totally different now and in the near future. And this is, for example, WeWork, probably also knowing from the co-working spaces, that also really recently, this is a few days ago, said that they are moving into the space of, so to say, smart cities. So you would say that it's always like a governmental perspective, but they have so many buildings and co-working spaces and also co-living spaces now around the world with so much data that they of course can use that to just sense and also predict the way that people live, work and play, so to say. And they are moving up in that field too. And hopefully, I don't know, it doesn't say, I think, in the article, hopefully they will be able to also partly share that knowledge and insights and foresights maybe also with the city governments in the cities that they are active in. And you mentioned already, I think, a bit more in the beginning, we're going from silos to what I would call like ecosystems. So really, for example, we did a research with Randstad, which is a really big HR company, and we really see that we're going away from this age of silos and value chains, really to ecosystems, which is not the easiest way because everything becomes fluid. You know, we were used to the silos, and it's somehow, okay, I know what's happening in the silo, and this is your silo, this is my silo. That it's going horizontal, it's going breaking through different silos in the coming period. That is not easy, but it is again about this rapidly platformization going on. And what we also see is that we're going from smart cities maybe to intelligent cities. So this is again London, we talked about the UK before, opening up a lot of data of the city to the public. I think that's helpful. And for example, what the city of Tel Aviv in Israel did already, the initiative is a few years old, but recently we had a seminar around it, is that they made a platform to build a lot of city services on to make it more digital, to make it easy, and to also make a good connection to the residents in the city. And that goes from like knowing where people gather to walk the dog, to there is street work going on and it's happening in your city or in your street, so that you should be aware of it. So it's a lot of GPS also oriented, but really of course centered on the residents. And maybe to take it a step forward, you talked about AI also briefly. We're going maybe from intelligence to intuitive. So from human intelligence to like more artificial intelligence. And this is, I think, also really interesting is that if you have the country of Estonia, it's a small country, but already years ago, before the big adaptation of internet even, they started with this perspective of totally becoming an e-government and an e-country. So I could even be, but you could even be, or you could even be an e-resident of their country. You could set up a business in their country in 18 minutes. A lot of health services, mobility services are based on platforms. They are looking into blockchain, etc. It's amazing what they're doing, and luckily they're also sharing a lot of their knowledge internationally, so I think that's also beneficial to DC, of course. And I really just, doing the research also for this presentation, came across an article with an interview of the CTO of this project of eEstonia. There are some things that maybe you can just read yourself, but say something I think that also relate to what is happening now in DC and in your department. One is, of course, this one. Sometimes we just, in our silos, maybe forgot what we're doing it for, but it's of course because we want citizens to be focusing on something else than just like sometimes the services of the city government. Automation comes in. And of course, then again, it's about like internal focus, and maybe we get, as a city government, sometimes lost in the development of e-services in the public sector. I think this is also interesting to really work on the user experience, you know, to make it better all the time. You talked about reputation and rating system, etc., and also do it in the background. And at least the city of Estonia, or the country of Estonia, sees that it will explode in the coming years. I think this is also in line with your roadmap. Really, what is needed: out of the box thinking, cooperation, and a dash of foresight. Maybe leave out the dash. I'm coming to the end of this, but because again I want to return to you, to the questions maybe. Let me see. Maybe conclude me. It's not, again, it's not more about like keeping it to yourself, but really to work together as maybe agencies, as cities, and internationally, as a public and private. I think this is how reasonably it also sounds, but like really needed. So I would really also suggest that you do the same continuously. This is just to sum it up. I think that is about what I wanted to give to you, and there's much more. So one more time, maybe, if you're working for the city government, all those resources are there also for you to, of course, benefit from it. But maybe return to you for some final remarks or maybe questions from you. Yes, I'll give you a mic.
Good afternoon, morning, Director. Do you envision, when you look at all the concerns that people have around privacy and data security, would you envision a time where you look at sharing as not just the government open and transparently sharing with the citizens, but citizens sharing with each other? So maybe I've gotten a building permit and I can help the next person who has a similar type of product. There might be some online communication resource where we can share previous experiences, or maybe I've opened a particular type of bakery and I can help the next person in some sort of online knowledge sharing forum. Do you envision a time where you would facilitate, you can see the government facilitating some of these conversations that happen on the Yelps of the world or some of these other social media types of sites? Is that a role you would think government at some point could or should play?
Yes, definitely. That's a very interesting question. When it comes to the role of government, there are a couple of underpinnings. One is to encourage innovation, be laser focused on inclusion from an economic standpoint, a social standpoint, and to be a fair arbiter, to play the role of the referee. We can achieve those goals through the sharing economy or the platform economy, where we put residents first. So by default, residents' privacy got to be safeguarded, not only from a policy standpoint, but also on a proactive basis. So I mean, your business is your business, and it's nobody else's business. So that's not like a starting point. What we envision happening through this platform economy or this sharing model as part of the digital transformation is that people will start helping each other. We see a little bit of that in the physical world, even doing at our permit center, where somebody maybe will overhear something or see an elderly person coming in or somewhere. You know, sometimes you can just tell somebody needs some help and they'll volunteer. I think that's some of the things that expediters also do as well. So moving that physical interaction, that assistance, and putting it on a platform enables efficiency to be gained, but also unlock new ways of helping. If I've gone through a residential project where I had to build a retaining wall, and these are the challenges that I navigated, and I shared an experience, the next time somebody is looking to build their retaining wall, they'll be in an informed position to understand, oh, what did Harmen do for his project for it to be successful? Earlier on, Mary Fitch and I were talking about finding use cases where somebody is going through the permitting process flawlessly, and what are the lessons learned so we can make that part of information that people can tap into. And that is a promise of the sharing economy. Harmen, you talked about one of the websites or the platforms where there are more people available to assist than people who need a service. But getting that information today outside of a platform is going to be costly. You can go door to door asking who can help me, who can help me, who can help me. If you look at the rent example, imagine you have to go tap on 10 neighbors door asking who has a rent. The time is going to take you versus simply going to some platform and saying who has a rent, what is the size of the rent, is it electric power that I have to charge. Those are the possibilities that could come about in the platform economy that we're actually very excited about.
This question, this is not a question, this is a suggestion. DCRA is just a starting point, but as you are aware that they also cross-reference with DDOT, DC Water, DOEE. I would like to see in the future a point where there's a collaborative effort and you all are up there and we're able to interconnect, and you talk about bridging the gaps of communication amongst those sister agencies, which I would think would be a large close of that void and inconsistency of information amongst the whole team at DCRA.
That's an excellent point, and I agree with you completely. While there are several agencies involved in permitting issuance, as an example, for the resident or business owners, it's still the same government. You know, why do I have to deal with 5 different agencies? If I'm a resident, that's what I'll ask, and that's what I tell myself all the time. So we have to make the work that happens at other agencies transparent from the user experience, so that you know this is what the workflow is. You have visibility into it. It doesn't matter that there is a technician at DC Water that is looking at the impact of your project, or DDA that is looking at the impact from a public space perspective, or even the Department of Energy and Environment from a stormwater perspective. It doesn't matter. It's one platform, it's a single city, and the service got to be like that transparent. That is one of the possibilities for digital platforms, where even though agencies can have separate systems, they can be integrated through application program interfaces, APIs. I used to tell this story that when you go to a website to buy something and they tell you that it's $9 for it to be shipped by UPS versus $15 for next day by FedEx, or $3 by the Postal Service, it's not because the website owns those entities. It's because their systems are talking to each other for the benefit of the consumer. And that is what we are actually striving for through this digital transformation, not just to solve the challenges that DCRA has, but to take direct aim about how to make city services cohesive in being delivered to our customers. And that is one of the things that the fiscal year 20 budget that DCRA has, that the mayor has proposed, gives us that ability to achieve. We are making capital investments around a small business portal so that when you are interacting with subdivisions within an agency or other sister agencies, it's transparent to you. Similarly, we've had conversations with my colleagues at our Department of Energy and Environment, and I did that in particular about how our systems will talk to each other in a way where proactive communications will go to the customer, rather than the customer having to call several city agency desks looking for the right person, leaving voice messages and following up on the voice message that you've left to remind them about the voice message that they need to check. That is bureaucracy at its finest. But platforms, platform economy, shared economy disrupt those in a way that is centered on delivering value to the customer. So we are not going to get there overnight. There are going to be incredible amount of challenges, but it is an exciting time to be in the city where we can now know what is possible. We now have a vision, and we can rally our stakeholders to provide us with feedback along the way, so that when we make mistakes, we correct them, and we identify what works, and we just strengthen it. So thank you for that suggestion.
What is your timeline? What do you see as the amount of time?
Yeah, and I'll scroll back to the slide. By January 2020, there are a number of things that we have to deliver on in terms of not only physical, but also electronic manifestation of the digital transformation. So come January 2020, you should be able to see that inspections are just faster. Permits are being done faster. You have complete visibility into the entire process. There are 200 more jobs that will be created. And that is just by January 2020. And at that time, we'll take a look at what else we need to tackle. So we are not trying to eat the proverbial elephant, so to speak, at one bite, but ground our initiatives on specific timelines. And we've been making incredible progress on that. So for example, we've been able to launch a dashboard within 6 weeks. And we released that, I think, in February. That provides unparalleled visibility into the agency performance. Secondly, we've launched a pilot customer relationship management model where we are resolving or addressing constituent inquiries and issues and concerns and compliments in 3 business days. But it's that agility in making sure that we deliver benefits along the way rather than wait to January 2020 to say, here is a shiny new system we have. That way we can incorporate feedback and move faster in delivering services. So it's a lot of work. It's a huge undertaking. But at the same time, what I've learned is that when people come together and we tap into the diversity of thought, opinions, and our feedback, we can only do incredible things.
Questions?
All right, well, it's been a very interesting conversation. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this seminar, not only representing the resident side of things, the business community, the business improvement district, sister agencies, and also people in the value chain. And last but not the least, Harmen, of course, for not only grounding us in what is happening around the world. We are in an interconnected environment and learning what Barcelona is doing, Estonia, London, Toronto, gives us context. So I'm going to give you the microphone for any parting thoughts.
Well, thank you for having us, and I think that is our pleasure to really, as I did, try to bring the world, in this case, to DC, and also we do it vice versa. So any interesting things happening here, we also would like always to export to other cities. If there's anything that you think is, for example, spontaneous thought, interesting to share, maybe also with other cities as a good case, or maybe as a case where you thought, okay, we made so many errors, but in the end we survived,
we can always put this, for example, in the Sharing Cities magazine, because it's solely, again, meant for the city's government, so it's a safe place to share knowledge and experiences, and this is exactly what is needed. I mean, I'm bringing this here, but I also want to export it. So in any case, please do that. And always, of course, feel free to approach me if you want to have a further chat or need some more insight on a certain aspect of the presentation, because this was just, you know, really briefly browsing through some cases, which is light. I do have a lot of respect for your work, so I will be following that also in the coming period, I hope. And just again, thanks for having me here, and it is a lovely city. I have to leave it already tomorrow, but hopefully be back sometime soon. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.